I didn't go looking for love. If anything, I was avoiding it. After my marriage ended, I remember sitting in my living room one night, lights off, the TV playing softly in the background, just staring into nothing, thinking, so this is what life looks like now? Starting over? Again? And I felt tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. That marriage didn't end with a big argument or some dramatic moment. It ended quietly, slowly, with a disconnect that grew over time until I realized I felt completely invisible. There was no affection, no real conversation, no presence. Just two people existing in the same space, not truly connected to each other anymore. So when my friend mentioned that her boyfriend was locked up and said he had a friend for me, I laughed. I looked at her like, be serious. But later that night, lying in bed with my phone lighting up the room, I actually thought about it. Because the truth was, I didn't want a man in my space. I didn't want to wake up next to someone and still feel alone. I didn't want expectations. I didn't want pressure. I didn't want to feel like I had to give my body just to keep someone interested. But I did want to feel chosen. And somehow, that felt like a safe way to have that. So I said yes. Before I ever saw him, before I ever stepped foot inside that building, there was this space in between where everything started forming. Slowly, quietly, without me even realizing how deep it was becoming. He called me every single day, like clockwork. At first, I just noticed it. Then I started expecting it. And eventually, I needed it, especially at work. I would already be on my break, almost waiting for it. And the moment my phone rang, I didn't hesitate. I would pick it up, walk straight out, go to my truck, close the door, and that was it. 30 minutes. No interruptions. And if anyone tried to interrupt me, they learned quickly. Because I wasn't answering. People started noticing. You can't disappear at the same time every day, come back smiling, and expect no one to be curious. What do you do on your breaks? You're always on the phone. I would just smile. I never explained anything, but they knew. And it wasn't just that he called, it was how he showed up when he did. He never rushed me. He never talked over me. He wasn't distracted. He listened in a way that made even the smallest details of my day feel important. What did you eat today? How was work? Really? You sound different. What's on your mind? And he would stay right there until I answered. After coming out of a marriage where I often felt unheard, that kind of attention felt different. It felt intentional. It felt real. I started thinking about what I was going to tell him before he even called. Replaying moments in my day like, I'm going to tell him this. He's going to laugh at this part. He's going to ask me about that. I started anticipating him. Then one day, he sent me a picture. I remember opening that envelope slowly, already feeling like it was about to matter. And when I finally looked at it, I paused. Because he wasn't just a voice anymore. He was tall, you could tell immediately. Built in a way that didn't look forced, like his body had developed over time. Broad shoulders, strong arms. The kind of presence you notice before someone even speaks. And his face. He was handsome, but not in an exaggerated way. Calm, grounded. His eyes had a focus to them, like when he looked at you, he really saw you. I held that picture longer than I meant to, just taking him in. Because now, it was real. Somewhere in all of that, I started falling for him. And by the time that first visit came, I wasn't going to meet a stranger. I was going to see someone who already felt like mine. That morning, I woke up before my alarm. My heart was already racing. I stood in my bathroom longer than I needed to, just looking at myself like, what do you even wear for something like this? I changed my outfit more than once. My hair had to be right. My makeup had to feel like me, soft but still put together. I remember doing my lashes and stopping halfway, just staring at myself thinking, why am I this nervous? He's not even coming to pick me up. But I was, because this was about to become real in a way it hadn't been before. The drive there was long, quiet, just me and my thoughts. The closer I got, the more I felt everything building in my chest. Excitement, curiosity, and a little fear. I kept picturing him, his height, his voice, the way he might look at me. Would it feel the same? Or would everything fall apart the moment I saw him? When I got there, everything slowed down. That building doesn't feel like anything else. There's a heaviness to it before you even walk inside. People sitting in their cars, some standing outside. Everyone there for someone, but no one really talking about it. I sat in my car for a moment, holding the steering wheel, just thinking, okay, this is really happening. Then I got out. The process of getting in, it humbles you. The line, the waiting, being checked, being told what you can and cannot wear, what you can and cannot bring, adjusting yourself to someone else's rules just to be allowed inside. And then, the search. That part made me uncomfortable. Being told to turn, to adjust, to show, it felt invasive. I remember thinking, this is what I have to go through just to see him? Part of me wanted to leave, but I didn't, because I had already come too far. And then I saw him, and everything else disappeared. He walked in, and the first thing I noticed wasn't just how he looked. It was how he carried himself. Calm, confident, solid. He looked even more built in person than in the picture, his presence filling the room without effort. And when he saw me, his entire expression softened, and something in me melted. Sitting across from him felt surreal. Hearing his voice in person was different. His energy felt grounded. The way he looked at me, like he was taking in every detail, like I was something he had been waiting to finally see. And for those few hours, it almost felt normal. Almost. But visits end, and no one prepares you for that part. Because just when you start to settle into it, it's time to go. Walking away from him felt heavier than I expected. I remember turning back one more time just to look at him again, like I needed something to hold on to before I stepped out of that space. The drive home was always the quietest. No music, no distractions. Just me replaying everything. The way he smiled, the way he looked at me, the way it felt to finally sit across from him. And then, reality would slowly return. The empty passenger seat, the silence, walking into my place alone. But instead of pulling me away, it pulled me in deeper. Because now I had something to look forward to, something to prepare for, something that felt like it belonged to me. And somewhere in that cycle, I didn't just like him anymore. I loved him. Loving him didn't happen all at once. It settled in slowly, quietly. The way something becomes part of your routine before you realize you can't function without it. By the time I admitted it to myself, it wasn't even a question anymore. I loved him. Not just the idea of him, not just the safety of distance. I loved the way he showed up for me in the only ways he could. I loved the consistency. I loved the attention. I loved the way he made me feel seen, after feeling invisible for so long. But love, in that situation, comes with a cost nobody really talks about. And I started to feel it. At first, it didn't feel like a burden. Sending him money felt like care. He would mention needing something small, soap, snacks, a pair of sneakers, and I didn't hesitate. It made me feel like I was doing something for him, like I mattered in his world the way he mattered in mine. I remember the first time I sent money. I was standing in line, looking down at my phone, typing in the amount, pausing for just a second. Not because I didn't want to do it, but because I realized nobody had ever needed me like this before. And something about that felt powerful. I hit send. And just like that, I stepped into a role I didn't fully understand yet. It became routine. Every week, sometimes more. Phone time had to be paid for. Packages had to be sent. Visits had to be planned. And I didn't complain. Because in my mind, this was love. This was what you do for someone you care about. But slowly, without announcing itself, it started to shift. I would look at my bank account and do mental math before I even opened the app. Okay, if I send this, I still have enough for gas. I'll just move this bill to next week. I'll be fine. I started rearranging my life around making sure he was okay. And at first, I told myself that was normal. But then it became constant. The visits started to feel heavier too. Not when I was with him, but everything around it. Waking up early, getting ready, making sure I looked good, even though I knew I was walking into a place that stripped everything down to rules and restrictions. The drive. Long, quiet, sometimes 3 hours. Just me thinking. And then the line. Standing outside in the cold sometimes, shifting my weight from one foot to the other, watching other women. All of us there for the same reason. All pretending this was just a normal part of life. It never felt normal. The process didn't get easier. If anything, it became more exhausting. Being checked, being watched, being told what to do, how to stand, how to move. Adjusting myself just to be allowed to see someone I loved. And every time I went through it, there was a small voice in the back of my mind that whispered, "Is this too much?" But the moment I saw him, I silenced it. Every time. Because when I sat in front of him, everything else faded. His presence grounded me. The way he looked at me, the way he listened, the way he spoke to me like I mattered. It made everything feel worth it. In those moments, I wasn't standing in lines or checking my bank account or driving hours alone. I was just with him, and that was enough. Until it wasn't. The nights started to feel longer, especially the quiet ones. I would lay in my bed the same way I used to after my marriage, staring at the ceiling. Except now, there was someone in my life. And still, no one next to me. No one to reach for. No one to talk to when the day didn't go as planned. No one to celebrate with. No one to comfort me. Just silence. Birthdays came, Valentine's Day came. Moments that were supposed to feel special came and went. And all I had were words, phone calls, letters, promises, but no presence. And I started to feel the difference between being loved and being alone. I remember one night specifically. I had just paid a bill late, again. And I sat there on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, looking at my account, and it hit me all at once. I am struggling, and the man I love cannot help me. Not because he doesn't want to, but because he can't. And for the first time, that reality didn't feel romantic. It felt heavy. And then something else started to bother me. Something I couldn't quite explain at first. He agreed with me about everything. At first, it felt good. No arguments, no tension, no pushback. After what I had been through, it felt peaceful. But after a while, it started to feel off. Because real people don't agree with you all the time. Real relationships have friction, differences, opinions. And I started to notice he would catch himself before disagreeing. He would soften his words, adjust his tone, almost like he was afraid to lose me. And that's when it hit me. In his world, I wasn't just his girlfriend. I was his connection, his support, his access. his stability. And I didn't know where love ended and dependency began. Then the conversation started to change. Little comments at first, subtle, but they stayed with me. You know it costs a lot for me to call you. I need you to make sure you're putting money on there. You don't understand how it is in here. And I did understand. That was the problem. I understood so much that I started ignoring what it was doing to me. Because now it didn't feel like I was choosing to give. It felt like I was expected to. And once something becomes an expectation, it stops feeling like love. I started feeling pressure. Not loud, not aggressive, but constant. Like I was carrying something that didn't have an end date. And I remember sitting there one day, just staring at my phone after we got off the call, and thinking, how did I get here? Because this started as something that felt safe, something controlled, something that protected me from the things I didn't want to deal with. But now, I was emotionally invested, financially invested, mentally exhausted, and still alone. And for the first time since it all began, I questioned it. Not him, not us, but the reality of what this was. Because love is supposed to add to your life, not slowly take pieces from it while you convince yourself it's worth it. And I wasn't sure anymore if it was. There came a point where I could feel something shifting inside of me, and I didn't want to admit it because I had invested too much to question it. I had built something in my mind around us. I had created meaning, structure, even a future that made all of this feel worth it. So when that feeling started creeping in, I tried to ignore it. But I couldn't. Because I started to feel like he was performing. And that thought bothered me more than anything else. Because if I looked at his actions alone, he was doing everything right. He called me every single day without fail. He listened closely. He remembered details. He responded in ways that made me feel understood. He said the right things at the right times, and for a while, that felt like love. But after some time, I began to notice something underneath it. It didn't feel spontaneous anymore. It felt calculated. Like he knew exactly how to maintain me, how to keep me emotionally invested, how to keep me attached. And one day, after we got off the phone, I sat there staring at the screen in my hand, and the thought came to me so clearly it almost startled me. The way he treated me felt like his job, and my support felt like his paycheck. I didn't say it out loud. I didn't confront him. I didn't even fully accept it in that moment, but it stayed with me. It followed me into my day, into my thoughts, into the way I started looking at everything. Because at the same time, my real life was starting to feel the weight of all of this. I was behind on my bills, not in a small, manageable way, in a way that made me pause before opening my banking app, in a way that made me sit on the edge of my bed and think about what I could delay and what I couldn't, in a way that made everything feel tighter, heavier, more stressful. And still, I was sending money, still making sure his phone time was covered, still sending packages, still making sure he had what he needed. I had gotten so used to taking care of him that I didn't realize how much of myself I was giving away in the process. I would stand there sometimes, phone in my hand, looking at the amount I was about to send, doing the math in my head before pressing the button, telling myself I would figure everything else out later. And that later kept coming, over and over again, until it stopped feeling like I was choosing to do it and started feeling like something I had to do. And he noticed the shift in me immediately. He always did. If my voice sounded even slightly different, he would pick up on it. If I paused too long before answering, he would question it. If I wasn't as engaged, he felt it. And instead of giving me space, he leaned in deeper. That's when he started bringing me into his world in a way he hadn't before. He began introducing me to his family. At first, it felt meaningful. It felt like I was being included in something important. I remember holding my phone the first time, sitting there, listening to voices I had never heard before speak to me like they already knew me. His sister was warm. His mother was kind. His brothers spoke to me with a certain level of respect that made me feel like I mattered. They thanked me. They acknowledged me. "We're glad he has you. Thank you for being there for him." And for a moment, I felt valued in a way I hadn't expected. But then it kept going. More calls, more introductions, more conversations. And before I even realized what was happening, I wasn't just someone he cared about anymore. I was part of the family. At least, that's what they started calling me. "You're family now." That word started to carry weight, because being family comes with expectations. They would call me just to check in, but it didn't feel like they were checking on me. It felt like they were checking on him through me, asking how he was doing, if he had what he needed, if everything was okay. And slowly, I started noticing something that didn't sit right with me. They stepped back. All the small things they used to do for him stopped. The occasional help, the little contributions, the effort. It faded. Because now there was me. And I didn't even realize when I became the one responsible for everything. I think about the first time I sent that food package. I remember how intentional it felt. How I carefully picked things out, thinking about what he would like, what would make him feel good, what would make his situation easier. I felt proud of that moment, like I was showing up for him in a real way. But that moment changed the dynamic. Because after that, it was no longer something I chose to do. It became something I was expected to do. And once something becomes an expectation, it no longer feels like love. It feels like responsibility. And I was carrying all of it. Then came the moment that forced me to really stop and think. He proposed. I remember exactly where I was when he said it. Sitting still, phone pressed to my ear, my body almost frozen, because something about it didn't feel the way I thought it would. It didn't feel like excitement. It felt like pressure. Because it wasn't just the words. It was everything around it. The timing, the situation, the weight of everything I was already carrying. And before I even had time to process what that meant for me, he had already started telling people, "This is my fiancé." I didn't even get a moment to sit with the decision, to ask myself if that's what I wanted, to think about what that would look like in real life. It was already moving forward without me. And suddenly, I wasn't just the woman who supported him. I was his future. And with that came even more expectation. Now I was paying for all the calls, not just between me and him, for everyone. I would three-way family members in so he could stay connected, so he could talk to them, so he wouldn't feel cut off from the outside world. And I did it because I cared, because I believed in something deeper than the situation. I believed that he deserved love. I truly believed that just because someone made a mistake, just because someone ended up in a place like that, it didn't mean they didn't deserve to be loved, to be supported, to be seen as a person. And I held on to that belief tightly because it justified everything I was doing. It made the sacrifices feel meaningful. It made the imbalance feel temporary because one day he would come home. He had 10 years. 10. And in my mind, I started building a future around that. I pictured what it would be like when he got out, how he would look at me, how he would treat me, how loyal he would be after everything I had done for him. Because he had to be. After all of this, he had to be, right? And that question was the one I couldn't answer anymore. Because for the first time, I started to wonder if I was holding on to love or holding on to the idea that one day it would all make sense. And that thought was harder to sit with than anything else. There wasn't a moment where I just woke up and decided to leave him. That's not how it happened. If I'm being honest, I stayed longer than I should have, even after I started seeing it clearly. Because once that thought hit me, that this felt like his job and I was the one paying for it, I didn't walk away. I sat with it, and then I ignored it. I remember one specific time. I was about to send him money. I was sitting on my bed, phone in my hand, looking at the amount, and I paused. Not a quick pause, a real one. The kind where your body is telling you, don't do this. I even said it out loud. This doesn't feel right. And then I sent it anyway. That's the part nobody talks about. When you know something is off, and you still choose it. Because at that point, it wasn't even about him anymore. It was about everything I had already put into it. The time, the money, the emotional attachment. Walking away would have meant admitting that I gave all of that to something that wasn't what I thought it was. And I wasn't ready to face that yet. So I stayed. And the more I stayed, the more things started to feel different. Just off. He started asking for things in a way that didn't feel like asking anymore. It felt like he already knew I was going to say yes, like it was understood, and I played into it. Every single time. Even when I didn't want to. There were moments I would hang up the phone and just sit there, staring at the wall, feeling irritated. And then when he called back, I answered like nothing was wrong. Smiling, soft. Still giving him the same version of me. I was splitting myself in two. The part of me that knew, and the part of me that stayed. And then that moment came. The one that snapped everything into place for me. I told him I was behind on my bills. I didn't make it dramatic. I didn't ask him for anything. I just said it the way you say something when you're tired. I'm trying to catch up. It's just been a lot. And there was a pause. Not long, but long enough for me to feel it. And then he said, "You're still gonna make sure I'm good though, right?" And I swear, something in me just went quiet. Not angry, not emotional, just still. Because in that moment, I heard everything I had been trying not to hear. It wasn't about me. It was never about me the way I thought it was. And the craziest part? I still didn't argue. I didn't check him. I didn't say, "Are you serious?" I just said, "Yeah." That's the truth. I said, "Yeah." And after we got off the phone, I sat there with my phone in my hand, and I just stared at it. Because I couldn't even recognize myself in that moment. I knew that wasn't me. But I had become that version of myself, slowly, without even noticing it. That's when it finally hit me. Not in a powerful, confident way. Not in a "I deserve better" speech. Just a quiet thought. I can't keep doing this. And even then, I didn't leave right away. I started pulling back, but I kept answering sometimes. I stopped sending as much, but I still sent sometimes. I told myself I was detaching, but I was still there. Half in, half out. Because letting go of him meant letting go of everything I believed this was going to turn into. The loyalty I thought I was building. The love I thought would come back to me. The future I had already started creating in my head. And that was harder to let go of than him. But eventually, the distance I was trying to create started becoming real. I missed calls and didn't mind. I saw messages and didn't respond right away. I stopped rearranging my life around him. And something strange happened. Nothing fell apart. There was no big moment, no dramatic ending, no closure conversation. He just slowly became less a part of my life. And I realized the thing I thought I couldn't walk away from was already slipping away. And I let it. Not because I stopped caring, but because I finally saw it clearly. I wasn't being loved. I was being maintained. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Silent in Love